What do you think now? Let's say we have the evolution of man, metaphysical evolution, for example. Now this, where do we stand? Do we stand 10, 20%? What do we know? What human, what man?
Good question.
What do you think?
I think that we have quite a ways to go.
Yeah.
I think that there's a tremendous amount of understanding that we have yet to absorb. I think that it's funny, Dr. Stephen Hawkins just recently was interviewed. I was actually reading about it, and where he issued a statement saying that if the human race can actually get past the next 200 years, that we will probably be able to sustain ourselves into the next millennia. That this is the crunch period. This is when crisis occurs. This is when we can be in a situation that brings us to the brink of destruction once again. The last situation that occurred of that nature was perhaps the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. I think that if we are able to transcend this 200-year period, that we will continue to evolve, continue to grow, continue to expand our knowledge. It will go past, hopefully, a level of fear and lack of comprehension to one of acceptance and greater comprehension.
What is your idea then, let's say, of the human soul, maybe? Do you believe in reincarnation, for example? Or?
I believe in it being a possibility. I certainly recognize that there is, in fact, a soul, and that it is something that is energy-born. And if you go back to that first mover concept, then energy is particles in motion, and unless they are stopped, well, then they continue to move. So that energy, that mass, that life force, whatever you call it, must be able to transcend, must be able to sustain itself. I don't necessarily buy into the Buddhist notions necessarily of reincarnation, whereas that I believe that a human soul is different than an animal soul, for example. Okay. I don't think that we would necessarily become a horse in our next life. But I do believe, or I do subscribe to the notion, shall we say, that the soul transcends the length of the life of the body.
Have you examined maybe your previous, if you believe in it, your previous maybe lives, as people say?
It's interesting you put it that way. Not that I'm a religious person, because I'm not, but in the days when I was studying at seminary, I had come into contact with a number of different learned men, righteous men, and men who were supposedly very, very in tune with their own soul and their own sense of time and space. And many people say that when you meet someone, you can tell by their aura what sort of individual they are, if you have a sensitivity to that. And many of these people who I had met with and or studied under have told me that my soul is very, very ancient, very old. I don't know, according to Jewish theology specifically, there are a finite number of souls that were created, and those souls continue to pass from generation to generation. That is why within Judaism typically there isn't necessarily a concrete concept of conversion, because if you go according to the Kabbalistic interpretation of it, it's basically a lost soul, a lost Jewish soul finding its actual place. Yeah. So I definitely believe in the notion of an eternal soul, and I definitely believe in the transcendent nature of energy. So I definitely would subscribe to those notions.
But can you say that maybe you can, if you have the knowledge, or maybe the ways to do it, then tap into those?
Oh, I wish I had that knowledge.
Right.
I have done a little bit of Kabbalistic study, but nothing extensive. What the rabbis will tell you is that your mind is not prepared for it until you reach the age of 40 years old. Technically.
Almost for you.
Oh, I got a good 5 years, man.
Years, yeah,
I got a good 5 years. So. I'm
No,
gonna
but
I'm gonna I'm gonna hold on to them with all my heart and
Okay.
soul. So.